Good morning. Sorry about the wait. My Zoom would not start. I had to try starting the meeting 3 times in the last 15, 20 minutes. So I apologize for that. How are you guys doing this morning?
Good morning.
It's good to hear your voice, Austin. Is
Wayne.
that you, Preston, or David? I couldn't tell.
Me.
It was Preston.
Oh, okay. That's who he is. Got it. How was your weekend, guys?
Longer than I thought it would be. In a good way.
In a good way. Okay, that's good. That's good. Anybody do anything interesting this weekend?
Thanksgiving.
Oh,
I mean,
really?
not this weekend. Wait, you said week or weekend?
Weekend. Yeah.
Oh,
Did you?
sorry.
It's
I'm
okay.
still waking up.
It's early and it's Monday, and yeah, everybody's still just kind of like, oh yeah, we have to be awake-ish.
Y'all, I set my alarm for 5:30 a.m. instead of 7:30 a.m. and I'm so upset.
I
Like
would.
I got up. Yeah.
Oh, have you at least had some good coffee?
Hell yeah.
Oh, good. That's what I like to hear. All right, I'm just opening up our agenda for today so I can have all my links available. But does anyone have questions or concerns at this point about anything? No? You're all set on everything? You all know the stuff? That's a good thing. All right, because we are late starting and I don't want to take up more time than I have to of yours today, we'll skip the brain dump and sensory inventory. I'm just going to go ahead and cross that out. I'm going to try. I keep getting a spinning circle this morning, which is not.
You're gonna go crazy. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I think
Hey,
so.
kitty.
Okay. All right, so I have, if you, I don't know, Ruby may have looked at it already since she's been up for a long time.
Oh,
But I have a short document about your arguable assertions project that I will share my screen in just a moment. Just want to get that open and then we can all look at it together. Okay, I think. I don't know how many times I'm going to have to press share for it to share. It's sharing, isn't it? Good.
yeah.
Okay, somebody was in the waiting room, but now I can't get back to the waiting room. This is really annoying. Hold on a second. This is, oh, there it is. Okay. Very frustrating the way this is doing things today. Zoom is not my friend today. We'll just say that. I admitted you. Why are you still in the waiting room? I don't know. Okay, so the arguable assertions project, first of all, it's due on Friday, December 4th at the end of the day. So that's not a whole lot of time, but again, it was designed for you to recycle your research, so to remix your research. And I think most of you are choosing to do that. If you're not, you're doing that knowing that you'll have to do some extra research. Does anyone have questions about that to start with?
I just have a comment about that.
Mm-hmm.
My research will be kind of related, but not exactly. So I might have to find some more sources.
Okay, I mean, you may have to find another source or two to say what you ideally need to say, but you shouldn't have to start research over from scratch.
Right.
Yeah. That's the point, is that you don't want to start over from scratch, and well, unless you choose to. And then maybe you do want to start over from scratch. but that'll take a little more work than if you're just recycling what you have.
Right.
Yeah. So the purpose of this project is to advocate for a specific position on a topic of your choice. So most of you had research that you can have a position on in some form or another related to that topic. Austin, we were using last time the idea of when and how often and what kind of passwords you should have and change, right? And
Yeah.
so even though, I mean, that may be not the best example, but it was the first one I could think of for your topic, or related to your topic, you know, that would be, you would take an opinion, take a position on that and argue for that position, based on your understanding of the overall topic, which is where all the research you've done already comes into play. And then you may have to find another source or two that specifically says you should do this and why. But you're not, for this, you're not, if you'll look at the checklist here, you don't have to have a works cited page. You don't have to have any sort of bibliography for this. I'm assuming, you know, unless I'm told otherwise, I'll be assuming that you're building off of the research you've already done, even if you are bringing in an extra source or two. So you're not expected to use MLA formatting, or style or anything for this beyond the fact that we expect, you know, generally error free when it comes to grammar usage, mechanics, and spelling errors. But we all make little mistakes every once in a while that we don't catch. So I don't look for an absolutely perfect paper, because perfection is not really a human trait. So yeah, but I'm looking for you to have a clear, arguable thesis on a specific topic. So our explanatory thesis wasn't really arguable. It was just, you know, one of the examples had to do with Chinese immigrants contributing to the the railroad, the Western Railroad expansion. Right? That's not arguable. That's a fact. That's a fact recorded in many history books, over a long period of time, relatively speaking. So, you know, that's not an arguable assertion. An arguable assertion would then have something to do with, you know, a position on that, such as that was exploitation of immigrant labor or something like that. And then that could be arguable, depending on, you know, the evidence that you bring into it, the points that you make. So you're looking for an arguable thesis that you can make 2 to 3 specific claims about. So if we go back to the password thing, you know, your arguable thesis might be something like, all passwords need to be, you know, a minimum of 7 characters, because an even number is too easy to guess or something. But, you know, all passwords need to be a minimum of 7 characters, of a variety of at least 2 different kinds of characters, and should be changed every 8 weeks. You know, that would be a thesis. That would actually be an arguable thesis, because there are people who disagree with that kind of idea. And they have their own evidence and research to back up what they're saying with that. So that would be arguable, because somebody could challenge that claim and do so with credible, logical evidence. So you want your arguable thesis, and then you want 2 or 3 specific claims. So one of those would be, you know, that studies have shown, research has shown that, you know, the ideal password is, you know, at least 8 characters, for whatever reasons. And then you would have your evidence, whatever articles or videos or whatever you've come across that backs up that claim. And then, you know, one more claim about like how often to change your passwords, kind of thing. And then you're going to have your evidence for that one, of course. So those are the argument pieces that have to be in your piece that you're writing. Now, after that, things depend upon the particular form you've chosen. So we looked last week that you could write an opinion piece, like an op-ed piece for like a larger newspaper. You could write a letter to the editor if that seemed to be the way to get to the audience you need. You could write a letter to a specific politician or CEO or other leader, um, you know, a school principal, or, uh, Dr. Pink, the president of GRCC, whoever you wanted to write to um, that has authority or power to make changes related to your topic, to your claim, your thesis. You can write or develop some sort of public service message or advertisement. You have, lots of different choices you can make for this particular project. And it really depends on what you think is going to reach the audience that you have in mind the best. And so your audience is someone who can change things. Um, and that for each of you will differ according to the topic you have chosen. Your project should be no more than 700 words. Um, some might be shorter, but don't fall into the trap of thinking that shorter is easier. When you have a more limited space, you have to be much more intentional about what you choose to include in that space. So sometimes the shorter pieces can be more difficult. In fact, I would say that most of the time the shorter pieces are more difficult than the longer ones. You don't have the margin of error for, having a part that's maybe a little repetitive, or having, extraneous words in some section where you could really cut it down and be a little more succinct and concise with your phrasing in your sentences. So in any case, the longest of the pieces that of your options is usually the op-ed, the opinion piece. And those typically don't run more than 700 to 800 words. So I'm cutting you off at 700. Now, obviously, there will be people who will come and say, but I need 720 words. Is that okay? Or am I going to get in trouble for going 20 words over? But it depends on what you're doing. But if we talk about it, probably you'll be okay. Or we'll talk about ways you can cut out what's not needed. So those are the basics of this project. What questions or concerns do you have?
So in
Go ahead.
essence, we're taking a stance on a particular subject.
Yeah. So with your, with a research topic, I'll use another example, not just yours, but someone wrote about um, abortion and what happens in abortion. What are the different methods? What are the different reasons why different methods are chosen or used in different circumstances? And then that person is going to take a particular stand on some aspect of this topic, whether it's abortion as a whole, I don't know, or if it's a particular procedure for or against. I'm not sure yet what the person has decided. We briefly talked about it last week, but I don't know exactly what's been decided yet. So it's just going to be one arguable assertion, one stand, one position related to the overall topic.
And then are we trying to persuade our audience, or
Yes,
just
because you're advocating for the position. So you want your audience to believe that your position is correct. So that's why you want to have a good, strong, arguable thesis that's clear, that says this is the position, and then you want to have claims that are, that you can support that will guide your reader toward accepting that position.
Okay.
So you want, if they don't fully come to accept your idea as at least valid, then you haven't accomplished your purpose. You may not be converting people to your point of view, which is where this differs from some other kinds of persuasive writing. But you at least want people to accept it as valid and say, okay, yeah, I see where you're coming from. The evidence looks good. I think I want to do a little more of my own research, but I'm kind of leaning in that direction. I kind of think that maybe I'll go with what Austin says.
Right.
Other questions or concerns you guys have about this project?
Yeah, if we're going back and using some of the information we gathered from the sources from the last topic, are we going to be citing them the same way we did on the last project here?
No, because you're not doing any sort of citations for this one. So the most you're going to do with this is you would, as you're writing, you would say, I think all people should begin their day with oatmeal because oatmeal has been shown to um, increase brain function in the morning or something like that. I'm just totally making that up, but I don't even like oatmeal, but whatever. Um, so then you would say, there, according to this breakfast food study by the medical school at whatever university you want to choose, um, participants who ate oatmeal every day for a month recorded increased cognitive function in the morning that lasted longer in the day than those who ate other things or nothing.
All right.
So you wouldn't have any page numbers, any end notes or works cited page or anything like that. You would just kind of embed it right in to your text. You wouldn't have to do a lot of citing otherwise.
Okay.
Other questions or concerns you guys have?
I think there's one in the chat.
Oh, okay, I can't even see the chat right now.
It's from Corbin. It says, "Are we looking for the person we are writing this to answer us back?"
Um, if you were to actually send it to someone, it would be really cool if you got an answer back, but I'm not requiring that for sure because you can't control what happens, once you've sent something off. But I'm not requiring you to actually submit this to anything or to send it to anyone, although that's a really good thing to do. And if you do that and you can send me like a screenshot of an email where you sent it, or if you get a response back then you can get some extra credit for that.
I think he's asking if it can be open-ended, or like if he can like end it with like a question, or any feedback would be appreciated, like something more like that. Not like he's actually going to send it.
Oh,
I
Yeah.
might be wrong.
I don't know. You could be right. It's hard to tell sometimes. So you
Good.
can ask
Messages.
for that. You don't have to, but yes, you can ask for that. And it is good for a lot of these pieces, the different options you have, ending with that kind of question, which leaves it in the reader's hands, is a good way, because that engages the reader. It makes them have to think about what you've written,
Mhm.
as they're ending, as they're finishing. And if you write your question well enough, it's going to stick in their mind for a while.
Right.
So, other questions? Thanks, Ruby, for your interpretation. Whichever it was, Corbin, I hope that we have answered your question, and maybe a question you didn't ask.
I mean, we could spend another 20 minutes deciphering this, like.
But, all right, other questions you guys have or concerns? Anything you're stuck on at the moment?
So when you say we don't need any sources, we can just hyperlink stuff like we're writing an article?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's the way most like op-eds are these days, is they just hyperlink because most of them are published, online. So you could definitely just use hyperlinks. That would be more than appropriate. By the way, I'm going to put a plug in for a class we're hoping to run in winter semester. For anyone who is interested in writing specifically for, it's called Writing in Digital Spaces. I think it's English 249. But anyway, it is all about writing for like websites and blogs, and it's more of a professional focus than say your personal mommy blog or whatever. So if any of you are interested in that, I would check it out. I think you only have to pass 101 to take that class, but I can double check. My friend Christina, my friend and colleague Christina McElwee is supposed to be teaching that, and yeah, so that just reminded me, Anthony, that would be a good class if anyone's interested in more of this kind of thing. Not just the opinion writing, but I mean more of like the writing in digital spaces online for like corporate websites and things like that. Yeah. All right, but back to the project. Does anyone else have any other questions or concerns about this project? I'm going to write the attendance on here real quick while you're thinking.
My question is more like personal based to my topic. So can I just stay after class and ask you about that?
Absolutely, of course.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Okay. All right. If no one else has questions about the project right now, then we are going to look at the one last thing you'll be doing for our class, which is the common assignment for all English 101 classes, which is your portfolio. We'll be spending the last week of class working completely on this portfolio. We won't have any other assignments during that time. That way I can help anyone who needs help with getting things together. We can ideally have some peer review of the portfolio letters. That's one thing that I want to mention is you have one more required language arts lab visit. You can choose at this point if you want to use that for your opinion piece or if you want to wait and use that for your portfolio letter. So let's talk about the portfolio and then maybe you can have a better sense of what you want to do for that. So the portfolio, the genre is reflection and analysis, a portfolio of work and a reflective letter. And I will tell you that the reflective letter is the major portion. Compiling the portfolio itself is like your works cited page, basically. So I'll explain that as we go. So your audience is a panel of GRCC English professors, including me. So I'm not the only one who is your audience, but is instructors you may have never met before are your audience for this portfolio. The purpose, we have 4 specific purposes to accomplish with the portfolio. The first one is to review the semester holistically in order to appreciate your progress as a writer. The second is to select and analyze written pieces from your semester that illustrate learning and growth. The third is to write about your progress in a way that is meaningful to both you and your audience. And the fourth is to apply what you have learned this semester in a capstone project. So you want to review what you've done as a whole. So, up till now, most of the time we just look at the specific like individual pieces. Now you want to look back at the entire semester, all of the different things that you've been asked to do, and ideally have done throughout the semester, and see where did you start in the beginning and now where are you? What are some specific areas that you have made some progress, some sort of growth, whatever that is. And so then you're going to say, well, this piece illustrates this kind of growth. This piece shows that I learned how to cite my sources properly in MLA format. This piece shows that I learned how to write a thesis statement, and I learned that there's more than one kind of thesis statement. Or these two pieces show that I know what the at least two different kinds of thesis statements are. So you're looking for specific pieces that will support your claims that you're making about your progress.
I have
Yeah.
a question.
Yeah.
So does this progress have to be purely like academic, or can it be like I learned how to express like different emotions on paper, or more like personalized?
No, that is perfectly appropriate. Yeah, what you just said, like learning how to express emotions or whatever, that is part of your growth and progress. So that would be great to add in. And students have done that before, similar things to that. Yeah, so then you want to write, this is what's interesting, is that while the audience that you're writing to is the professors, a panel of professors, you're also in a way writing for yourself. You want this to be meaningful for yourself so that you can also look back and say, wow, yeah, I learned some things. Maybe I didn't think I would coming to class at 7:45 in the morning. And maybe I thought, yeah, I'm just going to sleep through it. And maybe I'll produce some stuff, just enough, right, to get whatever grade I have in mind. And maybe you realize, hey, along the way somewhere, I actually learned how to do some things that I haven't really done before or haven't liked before. But you're pulling it all together then into this portfolio. So the portfolio components, it says 7, but it's more than that. Okay, the portfolio components, the main piece is your reflective letter. So that is the big piece that the readers are going to read, like really read, is the reflective letter. And then you're going to use a sample of your brain dumps and sensory inventories, your short assignments. I'll give you a list of what qualifies as short assignments, 2 rough drafts of any of your projects, and 1 revised final project. Those will be the pieces of evidence that you're including in your portfolio.
One question. So, do we have, I don't know what the short assignments are, which you're going to give to us later, but can we do rough drafts for short assignments if those line up at all?
Yep.
Or do they have to be like separate?
They can be any rough drafts.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. All right. So when the panel reads your letter, they will not go back and read like your entire draft of something. They will kind of skim through looking for, whatever it is you said that draft shows, whatever claim you're making in your letter that you say that draft that draft supports. So they're not going to be reading in detail any of your work. They'll just be looking through to make sure that, yeah, you've chosen pieces that really do illustrate what you're trying to say. And they won't be grading any of your work.
When it says reflective letter, is that like 1 to 2 pages or?
You're going to get to that.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So the reflective letter content, this is what we're going to look at here. You want to introduce your portfolio with a reflective letter that is intended not just for me, but also for the panel of English professors. As you introduce the portfolio, you want to reflect on your experiences this semester and use them to compose an analysis of your learning and growth. Keep in mind that a key element of any good writing is backing up ideas with evidence. For this assignment, that means finding specific examples from your work this semester to support your analysis. Use each of the components you chose to include in your portfolio as evidence for the claims you'll make. Any piece of writing you include in your portfolio must be referenced at least once in your letter. Now, I've asked you to include 8 brain dumps and 8 sensory inventories. That does not mean that you have to reference each one of those individually. You just have to make a reference to the brain dumps and sensory inventories. And if you want to, pull out something specific from 1 or 2 of those, you can, but you don't have, you can treat them as a collective, as one thing. And you'll see how they relate to the questions in just a second. So we have 3, it says address at least 3 of the following prompts in your reflective letter in a way that is cohesive and logical. In other words, avoid simply compiling a list of answers to each bullet point. You can't just say, this is the question, this is the answer, this is the question, this is the answer. I will be showing you next week some examples of students who have done a really good job with these, so you'll have an idea of what these letters look like. But right now we're just kind of getting an introduction to the project so that you can start kind of making notes for yourself or just thinking about it, being aware of it. Right. So the prompts that you have in the form of quotes, paraphrases, and summaries, use evidence taken from your portfolio components to explore and address at least 3 of these prompts. Now, people usually ask, well, do I have to have a works cited page then? No, you don't. You don't have to do in-text citations or anything like that for this, like we would normally do with quotes and paraphrases and summaries, but you would say, in my short piece, whatever it is, I practiced this skill and learned that I can actually do this thing, express emotions or something like that. So we're going to respond to at least 3 of these. And keep in mind that 3 is the minimum, and minimum work gets minimum credit, right? So if you want more than a C on this portfolio, you need to do more than the minimum. So your prompts are: choose a reading assignment from this semester and describe in detail how it influenced your development as a writer. So you can choose anything from understanding rhetoric or from Voices from the Rust Belt, and anything in any way that it has contributed to your development as a writer. Consider the brain dumps and sensory inventories. Describe your experiences with these exercises and how they influenced or contributed to the work you've done on your more formal writing for this class. Next one is, how have audience and purpose shaped your texts? So that's asking about when you write for a specific audience with a particular purpose in mind, how does that influence the kind of text that you write and the way you write, the way you address, the style that you use, the language you use? The next one is, describe how your information literacy skills have changed over the course of the semester. So we did all of those 8 modules, and you've been practicing using those things in the research project, and then you're carrying that on into the opinion piece and then into this portfolio. So how have your information literacy skills changed? Did you come in not really knowing how to differentiate between reliable, authoritative, credible, current, relevant sources and just any old thing you found on Google? So maybe you've learned how to evaluate your sources better, or maybe you were one who never really knew how to narrow things down to choose a topic and then search for sources effectively, but you've got some more tools that you're working on with that. You've made some progress there. And then finally, how have the skills you practiced in English 101 helped you to succeed in the writing you do for other courses and or outside of school? So sometimes we have, other projects in other classes that you can use some of the same skills, methodologies, and things in the other classes to do your projects better there. And I'll give you one example from last winter semester. After we went online, we had our first real sticky stuff activity or assignment that students had to complete for a project they were working on. And at first, they tended to think it was just busy work. But one of them in particular wrote me an email a few weeks later thanking me for having him do that because he was able to implement that in another class for one of his business classes. He had a project and he was having trouble getting started on that project and getting this, like the writing part started. It just felt really stuck. And then he thought, wait, why don't I try this sticky stuff? And he said that once he approached it that way and used the sticky stuff method, his project just kind of fell into place and he ended up getting an A on it. And he was a good student anyway, so he probably would have gotten a pretty high grade on it, whether he'd used sticky stuff or not. But just the fact that he was able to take that and use it in another course and make his life easier was something that helped him, a skill that he learned in 101 that helped him in another class, helped him to succeed in this project for another class. And, everyone was all, stressed out and in turmoil because of this sudden shift to online learning, and nobody really knew what that meant, including instructors. Like we didn't get the kind of guidance that we got for this semester. So, this transition has been a lot easier because we had more guidance in how we could approach it and prepare for it. Whereas, last winter, nobody really knew this was going to happen. So everyone was very stressed out. And for him to have something that he could take and use to make his life a little less chaotic was a good thing. And he did end up writing about that in his portfolio letter as well. So before we look at the rubric, Austin wants to know how long this has to be. So you're writing a letter and you're writing a formal business type letter. So first thing you'll want to do is look for a business letter template, which you can find in Google, you can find in Word, you can find in Pages. On a Google search for a business letter template, there are business letter templates all over the place. It does not matter what one you choose, just choose one that you like. It doesn't have to be super duper formal. It can have color on it if you want to. Because a lot of the templates do have some color that allows you the option, like for a business, to actually customize the colors to the colors that represent their business or whatever. Good letters are going to be written single spaced. You're still going to have size 12 font generally, but then you can choose which font you want as long as it's a good readable font, because it's a business letter, so you don't want anything super whacked out crazy, but just like a good, easily readable font. And then your length, because it's single spaced, most of the good ones are at least 2 pages. Some of them go on to 3 pages. Rarely does anyone go beyond that because that's a lot when you're talking single space. So if you get into your mind that you need about 2 full pages, you should have plenty, even if it's slightly shorter than that. Now, if you turn in 1 page, you're not going to pass. I can tell you that much. Because there's no way that you can do a good job really reflecting and analyzing in 1 page to at least 3 of those prompts. You will not pass.
You said this was a formal letter, yes?
This is a formal business type letter, yes.
Okay, so I don't know a whole lot about that, but in writing that, should we does that mean just be more like formal, like with your wording, like more
Yeah.
proper, quote unquote?
Yes.
Or
It's
so I
not
can,
it's not like sending a letter to grandma, and it's not sending an email to your friends, or even often an email to your boss where you're just saying, hey, I'm not well today, I'm not going to be able to come in. It's even, a little bit stepped up from in that it has structure. You're choosing, you know you're choosing not formal language in the sense of like legal documents, so nobody wants
my
to.
dear,
You are you are writing in complete sentences. You're making them as, well-designed sentences as you can, so that you're not rambling on. You're not going to start off with, dear English professors, how are you today? I'm really doing well. My cat came in and woke me up this morning asking for food. Like, that's not the kind of letter. It's more like, dear English professors, um, this has been an interesting semester of growth and opportunity, or something like that, where you're channeling more of your, like, I guess,
adult.
professional adult kind of language.
Okay, but we can still like talk in first person and like,
Yes, your letter should be in first person.
awesome. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Other questions that you have? And again, I will be showing you some examples next week, so you can see what other students have done that the department considers good work. And you'll see that it's not unattainable. There is a rubric here. This is the rubric that we all use. They give the percentage weight because different instructors give different point value for this. I do a 200-point portfolio because it is your final exam for the class. You can see that the portfolio components, not the letter, but the pieces that you choose to support your claims in your letter, are worth 40% of the total point value. So you want to choose the best pieces you possibly can. And there will be time for you to ask for help with that. And there will be time for you to kind of share progress in small groups during these meetings and ask questions of each other, or compile your questions so you can come back and ask me as a group, like, what are your questions as you're working on it. If you look at the proficient mastered area, the portfolio needs to include convincing examples of writing as evidence to support the writer's reflective claims. Each of the components is well chosen and indicates learning and growth. At minimum, all 6 of the required components are included in the portfolio. So you can't just say, oh, I don't want to include 2 rough drafts. I'm only going to include 1. You need to include 2 rough drafts. And at this point, I know there are people thinking, I just keep revising the same file over and over. Yeah, I know you do, even though I tell you not to. I know that that's what you do. Just call something a rough draft. Nobody's going to come back and look at it. Nobody's going to come back and say, oh, that's the one you submitted for a grade. That's not a rough draft. If you say it is, it is. Believe me, we don't have time. We don't have time to go and figure out, is that really a rough draft or not? Just call it that. Reflection and oh, hey kitty. Reflection and development is the next weighty category, and that is your letter. So the letter includes meaningful, in-depth reflection on each of the required number of writing prompts. The prompts are fully developed, and the letter references specifics from each of the individual components of the portfolio. So you've got all of the prompts you need to address. You've fully replied to each or responded to each one of them. Like you've given a really good, strong analytical response with specific evidence from your portfolio, and each element in the portfolio is included in the letter. And then we have context and purpose. So the context and purpose, the letter demonstrates a clear understanding of the rhetorical situation of this assignment and artfully satisfies it. So if we want to know rhetorical situation is our genre and our audience and our purpose. So we've written a reflective letter and compiled the portfolio that includes these components. I'm going to revise this again to reflect the correct numbers here. You've written with that panel of English professors in mind. So you're channeling that adult, more professional type of voice. And you have written in such a way that you are reviewing your semester and you're demonstrating where you have made progress or growth in your writing, in your skills as a student, you know, and in your reading, because your reading assignment is, you know, choosing a reading assignment is one of those as well.
Are you comparing growth from like the beginning of this year to the end of this whole semester? Or are you talking like personally like stuttering great. From like high school to now, or like the past 2 years, or
Okay.
like what's that time?
You know, you need to show some growth in areas throughout this semester, but you are welcome to compare them to, you know, what you came in with, what you did in high school compared to what you've done this semester. So like you can have that reference point. You can say that, you know, back in high school, my research papers were developing a thesis statement and finding sources that are going to support that statement. I've learned a different way of approaching research in this class by doing a wide variety of reading and viewing first, and then developing a thesis statement, kind of backwards from what I'd done before. So that kind of, it shows what you were doing before and how that's different from what you've learned in this class.
Got it. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Good. All right. And then we have structure and mechanics. So the letter is clearly organized and focused, showing a logical progression of ideas. Writing reflects careful editing and contains no errors in grammar usage or formatting. And then voice and style. Letter consistently demonstrates authority, authenticity, and the appropriate level of formality. Voice and style is not only consistent, but engaging. So as far as being engaging, you as a person should be present in this letter. It should be clear that a real live person has written this letter, not that it shouldn't seem robotic. It shouldn't seem like the writer is nameless, faceless kind of person. Does that make sense?
I understand. So you want to like have your thoughts and feelings combined with everything else.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's part of having this first person. So if you were to write it in third person and talk about the student demonstrated an ability to evaluate sources by that's not engaging. That's not having the person, the writer present in the writing. So writing in first person and, you know, saying, you know, when I first began English 101, I was not happy. I didn't think I should have to take this class. I felt like I had learned everything I needed to learn in high school and I'm not going into anything to do with writing. Because we have some people in our class who are going into automotive technology. We have people going into other fields where writing is not a large portion of what they'll be doing. So why should they have to take English 101? Like seriously. But there are reasons. And so, learning to say, hey, one thing I've gained from this class is making sure that I am clear in my writing. And that's important for a lot of fields. That where you have to give reports, you have to communicate with, if you're aiming for some sort of managerial or supervisory position, you have to be able to communicate with the people who you are managing or supervising. These days, most of that's done through emails and other electronic type communications. So making sure you're as clear as possible. And that's something that, we try to work on in English 101. But using that I voice and using that personal experience is important. But also at the same time, realizing that you're not writing for your friends or your family, you're writing for English professors who are professionals, who are expecting to see a professional type of letter. Does that make sense to you guys? And gals?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. Just so I get that it's formal. So does that mean there can't be like any comedy or jokes like kind of thrown in or peppered to the side, or should it be
No,
like
that doesn't
strictly
mean
like
that at all. That would be part of this consistent but engaging. Yes, humor,
got it?
especially for people who are, who approach life through humor. People who are just naturally drawn to that kind of expression of themselves, that is appropriate.
Second that.
Okay.
I think what our instructor is saying is that she doesn't want us to sound like a robot, like it's your personality, it's your
Put personal touch into it.
humanness. Yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, you want to watch out that you're not throwing in, a bunch of sarcasm, or that you're not expressing yourself in a way that comes across as the grumpy, disgruntled neighbor who's shouting, "Get off my lawn."
Nope, he's next door.
He's next door. Okay. Stay off his lawn. Yeah, you don't want to, while some humor is appropriate, being, extremely sarcastic and rude in that is not appropriate. And then, if you turn your entire letter into a joke, well, obviously that's not appropriate either. But throwing in a little humor here and there is a good way to engage the audience. So your task is to engage the audience, not alienate them. Other questions or concerns that you have right now about either the portfolio or the opinion argument project?
I just wanted to go back to make a comment. You mentioned earlier that like some of the people who are in different fields going for different degrees, I guess an example for me would be the research project. For me, I kind of made that for, or kind of aligning with my actual degree.
Uh-huh.
So I think that does set me up to be a little bit more successful in that field because it relates directly to you know
Mhm.
what I'm studying for.
That's good. That's a good thing. And
Um,
maybe mentioning that in your essay or your letter would be a good thing. Yeah.
I have a question. So could you scroll up real quick? Or actually you're already there. Never mind. So the purpose, right? Is that the purpose of just the letter or like everything?
It is.
Like just
So it's primarily the purpose that guides your letter, but it should also, play into your components as well, the portfolio components.
right. And then when we're writing the letter, is it like we write the letter and then this is this is the reflective letter that we're writing, right? And then you
Yeah.
want everything below it inside of the letter, or do you want the letter and then you have like here are the submitted things that go with it?
Well, that's a really good question. So let me show you what we have. We have a portfolio template that is available to you that you can download and open in Word, or you can do an open with and open in Google Docs. And it works in both of those just fine. So where you have these brackets is where you would replace this information with your own name and your course and your professor and the date. And then you have a table of contents that's already here for you that you can customize. I will show you later how to customize that. But as you can see, the reflective letter comes first. And then you have your short assignments and your drafts and your project and anything additional. The additional would be where your brain dumps and sensory inventory would go. So your drafts and your project there. And then what we have here is pages for each of these where you will copy and paste your reflective letter into this place and your short assignments. So each short assignment has a page set aside for it where you would just copy and paste the information into the spot where the brackets are. And so everything has a spot that's already there. So you don't even have to decide. It's already there for you. And in Word and Docs, this, when you open it, this is a link that the reader can click on to go back up. It'll just take them right back up to the reflective letter at the top. So they don't even have to scroll. So once you have your reflective letter, everything else has a link already in it to go directly back up to the letter. So I will be showing you, again, there's a guide that I'll be posting next week. Unless somebody wants it now so you can play around with it, you can do that. But there's a guide to using this template that I'll be posting for you, and it will explain to you how to update your table of contents. You don't just go in and start changing things. It's all like the instructor who developed this did it in a way that you don't actually go in and change anything here on the table of contents. If you change short assignment A, that name, and you do a couple other things, it will change it automatically. It will also update page numbers automatically as long as you follow the instructions in the guide. Right.
Wait,
And
did you say the guide was linked?
it's not yet.
Got it.
I have to get it from the English department Blackboard page, and then I can link the guide onto, I'll link it right with this portfolio template. I'll just, add and guide to the, using. Right, and I will add that link in. I just have to go get it from the right place on Blackboard. And then I can add that in for you. So I guess we'll go back here. What, any other questions that you guys have? Any concerns that you have about anything right now?
I think that pretty much covers it.
Okay. The rest of you who feel that same way, that you're covered for now, you're good, and maybe you'll bring questions back later, are free to take off. I know, Ruby, you said you wanted to ask some questions, so you can hang on for a minute. The rest of you, if you do have any questions or concerns, please send me an email. I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. And have a wonderful Thanksgiving week, whatever it is you're doing this week.
Have a good Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We had the rest of the week off, don't we?
Yeah.
Last year, my online teachers, and they're like, nah, break doesn't exist.
What?
What's a break?
My African American lit class is all online, and I gave them the week off.
My astronomy class is not off, and my psych class is not off. So
Aw, that's a bummer.
Hey,
Sorry.
Jojo, say goodbye.
Is the 99 class that we're not doing that today, or?
We are doing that today.
Okay,
Yeah, we are doing that today.
okay.
All right. Well, you guys are free, and yeah, have fun. Not too much fun.
will you put us back in like talking mode?
Yeah. Hold on.
Talking mode.
Talking mood.
That is the scientific term of it. Didn't you know?
Oh, I'm glad to know. I like learning. new
Yeah.
things.
Calorie.
Wait,
Yay,
I wonder-
okay, I did it.
I wonder if Corbin fell.
So, Corbin.
Corbin, are you still here? I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just so I'm doing opinions ish.
Mhm.
So it's hard to like develop like I kind of talked about this last week with you, but it's hard to develop like a strong like argument about something that's so controversial.
Right.
So like I could do like here's how opinions form, but that's more informational. That's what I did my research paper on for the most
Yeah.
part. And it could be like your opinions are not your own, and then everyone's like, eh.